You need to get up, get out, and get something. How will you make it if you never even try? You need to get up, get out.
You and I got to do for you and I. This is the Community Impact Report, and we want to talk about things that are going on in the black community. To continue on the point of being a discussion-based show, we want to highlight nonprofits and organizations, as we've said, but we also want to talk about hard issues and topics that happen in the black community and stories. And one of the stories that I saw within the community that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention and just talk about some of the problems with domestic violence that we have. And this is something that is bemoaned, especially amongst our black queens, that they don't feel protected by their black kings. And out in the wild, right, on social media, online, even entertainers and athletes, you see them getting very upset when they feel like well-to-do black men pass sisters up for others, right? And not to judge anybody's, who you fall in love with, but there is something to acknowledge with how we as black men treat our black women, and they need to hear that we care. And one of the stories that I heard was a very sad story by a young lady named Tanisha. I want to say it's either Pewsley or Pugsley. Forgive me, let her rest in peace if I pronounce her last name incorrectly. But she was a victim of a violent crime by her ex-boyfriend. She was 27. She was a detective in Alabama, guys, and she was killed a few months ago. And you don't really hear about the stories. I just heard this story. It popped up, and it's just sad that, a black man will die like George Floyd, but this beautiful young black woman who seemingly had everything going for her in her life, is a detective in Alabama at 27 years old in the community. There's pictures of her playing basketball with kids in the community. And her insecure boyfriend, who could not deal with rejection, murdered her. And I want to read this to you. So on Monday at about 2:15, this was I want to say this is July 7th. Okay, I was just say the ex-boyfriend of an Alabama detective is facing capital murder charges for killing her during a domestic dispute. And this happened in Montgomery. They responded to a 911 call about a shooting. Now, the officers and fire medics found off-duty detective Tanisha Pugsley suffering from a gunshot wound at her home on Overview Drive. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The shooting appears to be domestic related. Later on Monday, Montgomery police arrested Brandon Webster, 24, sucker, in connection with Pugsley's death. Man, and they found and took him into custody, man. And you read the story. Essentially, she actually filed a restraining order against him. And she was, I guess, holding the godchild. She was babysitting, and they got into a little argument, and he put his hands on her and caused her to drop the infant. And so she said, okay, that was the last straw. I guess they were living together. And look, that's a whole nother, I know that this is a very liberal, nation, man, but I have certain thoughts about that. Miss Pugsley got herself in an unfortunate situation with a guy that she should not have given her trust to. She was too beautiful, too smart to put her trust in this individual who obviously was not secure in himself, didn't value himself, had no vision of his life, and had nowhere that he was going. Because when he was told that he no longer had access to Miss Pugsley, he could not deal with that like a rational, responsible adult male. And he responded by not only ruining her life and her family's life, ruining his own damn life. Because now he's going to either be on death row or spend the rest of his life, another wasted black life, in jail. So we've wasted two black lives, 27 and 24, over something that probably was so minute in nature that he couldn't deal with his feelings and emotions. While we talked about last week, black men and their feelings and emotions, that he took her life. And this is a sad, somber story, gentlemen, and I wanted to just get your thought. Like, why do you feel that he went this direction? Like, I know we've all had breakups, and we're not perfect. I'm sure that there's been situations where we've not acted the best around women, and we're probably guilty of that in some situations across our life, whether we were young teenagers or whatever else. But What do you think led this man to commit this act in that way?
My honest opinion, I think that she told him that he didn't want her, or she didn't want him anymore. And just hearing that rejection and not being wanted, took him over the top. Because some men don't handle that well, regardless of race, color,
at all.
Anything. You hear, no, I don't want you anymore, or I moved on, or I have somebody else, meaning you're completely out of the picture. Some men don't handle that wrong. So that probably just, and not just like we talked about, his mental health. We don't know where his head was at. He could have been a loose cannon or short, so that probably set him off and took the young lady life, which he didn't have to.
You know, what's interesting to me is that this affected him so much so, this relationship. And honestly, you know, I know it's a funny topic, but entanglements, man. We talk like Jada Pinkett and Will Smith and your boy Alcina with the entanglements. But when you make wisdom and discernment is really important, and understanding people's character is very important. Yeah. I wonder how many signs there were.
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay,
the writing was well on the wall.
Right, for the sake of love, and it's not again, it's not to victim blame at all whatsoever. But she didn't deserve to die. So I want to make sure that women don't think this is what we're doing. But in life, we all should have discernment of knowing the quality and character of somebody. This guy, for a couple months, actually was stalking her, burner phones, sending her threatening text messages. She was trying to move on. Yeah. And so my question, you know, that I have is a man's purpose, right? Like, there's a phenomenal thought leader named A.R. Bernard, and he has this quote that a man, and forgive me, A.R., if I don't say it completely accurately, but a man without a vision is a man without a future, and a man without a future always turns to his past.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that when you have things going for yourself as a man, okay, when you have your own life, you're stable, you're confident, right? You value yourself, you know who you are, you know where your direction is going. If a woman rejects you, it doesn't knock you off your pivot. Right. You just say, all right, cool, boo, that didn't work. I enjoyed your company. You know, I'm disappointed that I wish it could have ended differently, but I have a goal in mind. I think that unfortunately so many of us black brothers don't know where we're going. We don't know our identity. We're out here in the land of the lost. We are getting our identity from the culture as rappers or entertainers or athletes, and then there's no other place for us to go. So like you said, who knows at 24 where he was, and now he's got this beautiful, ambitious black sister that he probably didn't feel like he even deserved,
probably so,
or felt worthy of her. Okay, and there were signs that his insecurities were starting to bubble up. Okay, and now, like I said, I don't know this man personally. He could have just been 100% nut. I would like to think that he wasn't. I would like to think that this was a progressive thing, that he got to this place, okay, and it manifested, it culminated into ruining her life and his own. But these stories, man, how do we heal? I mean, how do we give our black women more confidence that we have their back? How do we avoid these types of toxic situations? How do we learn more about each other so we don't get into relationships with people that we don't belong with, which I think is a big issue?
And you took the thought right out of my head, especially speaking towards this situation. I know as a young man, and probably in his circumstances, he probably had a certain level of dependency on that person, and not just like on the financial or the materialistic side, but I know in my situation, growing into my manhood and dealing with women and things like that, I had a tendency to lean on them for the things that I may have had as weaker points in my life. So if I wasn't financially stable, things like that, if I wasn't able to
didn't have a car or something like that,
a car or just, you know, a place to lay my head that was calm and you know, collected, you know, those are the things that we look for because we're so used to that dependency on our mothers and things like that. And so with him, in my mind, when I hear it, even though you have that dependency on a woman, you still take it for granted when you're young. And so, you know, you treat your woman whatever kind of way, knowing that you depend on this woman for your livelihood, your clothing, your food every night. And so at a certain point, and then, you know, I hate to reference them, but when a woman's fed up, we know how those things go. They're done. And so for us at a young age, we don't have the propensity or the mind frame to know how to deal with that form of rejection.
That's interesting.
It's life altering a little bit. You know what I mean?
How long did it say they were together? Did it say they were together for so many years?
No, I
years?
didn't. Yeah, it was a good amount. They
had
were
kids.
living together,
Right. You see
They
what
didn't
I'm
have any
saying?
kids.
But see, even being
yeah.
with a person for so long,
Right.
that familiarity
Yeah.
and can affect you too. And then when they're gone like that, I'm done with you. That sets you off.
You know what? You said something, and I'm so glad. Like, this is the reason why I love these discussions, right? Because we all have different life experiences. Like, since I grew up with a father, I didn't even think of that. But now, when you said it, was like, oh man, so many of my family members and friends didn't grow up with fathers.
Right.
And so when you said, it's kind of like baby boy.
Yeah, it's
Right?
the same thing,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
same
yeah.
concept.
Like we all know cats that like been
Right.
living off females. Still to this day,
Yep.
okay.
Made a career out of it.
Yeah, I never understood that. So you know what? It could have been that. It could have been where he got him a baddie. She had a good job.
Yep.
He was living off of that comfort and that luxury. And when she was like, "Nah, I'm fed up with you, Broham," kicked him out of the house. Now it's like he didn't have nowhere to go, or he didn't have any significance. And that's why I mentioned the purpose, because the purpose is important. If you have that purpose, you don't want to even live under a woman's roof and not provide.
Exactly.
Right? You have a
Exactly.
sense of pride as a man to say, nah, I got this. Like, I can take care of my own rent. I can take care of my own stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, living, if you've also been raised with only a woman, there's a level of comfortability around
Exactly.
women. And when you get that rejection, those emotions, you don't know how to deal with it.
It triggers
Man, that's
something there.
amazing.
It triggers something, and I'm only speaking from experience, and and just to kind of, like I say, the peek behind the curtains for me. I don't know if I'd ever felt the type of pain or rejection that I felt when me and my significant other wasn't together anymore. And it happened I swear to you, it happened at the same age as this young man.
Wow, okay.
And so to look at it and to know where I was, I don't think in my life, like, I've been through quite a few things in my life, you know what I mean? But I don't think I'd ever dealt with anything like that emotionally before. Like, I could care less if my father was in my life again. But it was like that love I had established with that
your
person
world.
was so deep
Yeah.
that once it was taken away, I was lost. And so it luckily for me, it caused me to say, okay, this is what I need to do to get back on the right path. But like we talked about last week with the mental health of us and not really having nobody to talk to, that might have been his person to talk to. And so you cut that and that's it. You know what I mean? So yeah, you just never know what was going on there. But it's just the bigger issue, like you're saying, is how we treat our queens as a whole, because I've heard that sentiment from multiple individuals. I've had conversations with women at work or at barbershops and things like that, and there's always that theme of, hey, I left this dude and he went crazy. I was with this guy and I told him it was over and he was hiding outside of my house in some bushes. Or my ex showed up to my wedding, or you know what I mean?
That's crazy.
But there's something in the minds of men, and I don't even want to say black men only, but we feel a certain amount of ownership over women, or we feel like nobody's gonna love you like I love you. So, or whatever it is that causes people to get there. I don't understand what it is, but I do see that there's a need for us to be behind our queens more so than any other time right now. Second class citizens isn't even a word I would, or a subject I would even frame around them, because I feel like sometimes it's lower than that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think that the things that happen, even with the Breonna Taylor thing, if you look at it how it is, this thing happened quite some time ago. And it seemed like things are revving up now. You're seeing the athletes talk about it a bit more. All these kind of things are going on, but there's multiple cases like this with women that nobody is talking about. The young woman in Fort Worth, Tatiana Jefferson, that got killed in her home. There was no protest for her before George Floyd. You see what I'm saying? And this lady is right in our backyard. So it's just a matter of the perception and how we see it, and are their lives as valued because it's a little more quiet when it happens? Is the story about her boyfriend making it out of the shootout with the police more exuberant or more to talk about than her losing her life? It's just so much, man, and it hurts to even dig into it.
It does, man. And I feel it, because, again, like, not to pass judgment. All three of us in here, our significant others are women of African descent. Okay, and so we hear it in our household every day. Right? Just how they don't feel valued. And sometimes I feel like we end up getting the brunt of it too, by the way they're treated out in the wild. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's one of the issues there, man. But, we gotta, I don't want to get too much there, because I think
that's
we gotta,
a whole other show.
Yeah, that's a whole other show. But again, if you have something to say, if you have thoughts and comments about this story, We want to get your feedback. Please engage in the dialogue. Before we get out of here, I do want to feature though a positive organization that's doing something right here in the local Dallas community, and this nonprofit is called Develop University. Shout out to my boy Brandon Watts, who is actually from Pasadena.
Nice.
So we keep rocking it with that Cali, Texas Cali connection, if you know what I'm saying. And we're continuing on that. But he is the executive director of Develop University, and their goal is to equip the participants with tools and resources necessary to make responsible decisions in high school and beyond. They achieve this by cultivating participants in their 3 program pillars, which are emotional intelligence, character building, and community service. So this is what they do. I've been to a couple of their programs. They do really cool different things like picnics, and they have seminars, and they have classes. You can look at developuniversity.org and see kind of about their pillars and their platforms and how they're impacting the community. Like I said, I give a shout out to Brandon Watts from Pasadena. He's here in the Dallas area. He is another phenomenal educator. Oh my goodness, I can't speak, man. I can't speak. But he's doing great things for the community all around Dallas. In fact, funny enough, we talked about Nakia Douglas as well. He was living on the north side of things, and he purposely moved south so that he could do more of this work in hard-pressed areas of the community.